Karen's husband attacks me over a Doordash refund. Sometimes food delivery apps will give the drivers 2 orders at once. When that happens, they tell us which order to deliver the food in. To customers who don't know about this, it sometimes looks like we are driving out of our way to make random stops when we are actually just doing our jobs. I tried to explain this to a customer who was mad about being placed second on the queue, but she wasn't happy. Then she sent her husband after me. This happened literally 2 days ago. So I work for one of many self-employable delivery apps that deliver food for various restaurants. On this particular day, I had gotten assigned to orders that were relatively close to each other. So I picked up the first order and got the second, too. The first order, of course, gets dropped off first. It took me about 10 minutes to get to the first address and drop off the order. Except I couldn't drop it off immediately since I had to hand it to the customer. This took an additional 5 minutes, since it took them forever to answer the door. Once that had been completed, I was on the way to the next address. So I get to the next house to drop off this order, and this one also requests that I hand it directly to the customer. So I go to knock on the door, and the following encounter ensues. A lady answers the door. She was a bit taller than me, about 5'8", blonde and kind of young looking. She has this look on her face like I was someone who had just kicked a puppy or something. She crosses her arms and says, "Took you long enough. We saw you go all over the place, except here to drop our food off. Care to explain?" I was kind of shocked, but using my best customer service voice, I replied, "Sorry, ma'am, I had been assigned 2 orders, and I was instructed to go to the first order first. I assume since it was closer. If there is an issue, you can contact the delivery app support, and they can try to work with you." She was not happy about this. She then tells me that she wants her order remade and wants it for free, or she will call the restaurant and have me fired. She had been very rude up to this point, and I really didn't want to help her further. I said, "Ma'am, I don't work for the restaurant. I'm an independent contractor. I'm so sorry, but there's nothing I can do." After that statement, she became irate. She started to clap her hands, and she told me, "Okay, you wait right here. I got something for you." I decided it was time to leave. Before I could completely get off the front porch, her husband came out. She had been wearing a wedding ring, so I only assumed that's who he was at the time, but it would be confirmed later. He was at least 6 feet even, and started to scream at me to hold it right there. Now, for further context, I have trained in multiple martial arts and self-defense for years. I heard this man come out and yell, and I immediately turned to face him because you never want someone who is potentially aggressive to have your back. I'm still backing up, but now I have turned to face him only feet away. He started advancing towards me. He screamed, "You are going to get us our effing refund or else." I replied with the same thing I had told his wife, but in a softer tone in an attempt to de-escalate this man. As I was in mid-sentence, he pushed me back hard. As soon as he had pushed me, my instinct and training kicked in. As I regained my footing, since I didn't get knocked down, I squared my stance and put my hands up to my face in case he tried to swing on me. I started to yell back at the guy and ordered him not to get any closer or put his hands on me. This was my warning. He then threw a wild punch, so I slipped back with a lean and then countered with a front kick to his stomach. This landed flush, confirmed by the most notable oof sound I've heard many times before. He folded slightly, exposing his face, so I followed up with a 1-2 as trained. After eating a 1-2, he fell to one knee. I moved back slightly to disengage and told him to stay down so I could leave. Once again, you never just turn your back on an aggressor. He got up, red in the face. He screamed at me, "F you, I'll kill you!" He then attempted to charge me. He threw another wild punch, and another. I ate one, but slipped and ducked under the second to get around and take his back. From here, I attempted to wrestle him down. He kept trying to punch me and even elbowed me once in the face before I was able to trip him and take him down. I did my best to pin him, with no hooks in case he picked me up and slammed me, but I wasn't successful until he rolled towards me. That's when I mounted him. He was mad. He shouted, "I will effing kill you! Get the heck off me!" He tried to bench press me off of him and almost got up a couple of times. He was strong. I told him I was not getting off until he calmed down. Now he started to punch, scratch, and bite me. In response, I gave a good couple of hammer fists to get him to cover up, and once he did, I got higher on his chest to pin his arms to his head. We remained there until the cops came. Once they arrived, they ordered me off him and put me in cuffs. I was put in a squad car until a cop came to get my statement and asked me what happened. I explained how they wanted a refund and I couldn't give it to them since I'm just a delivery driver. The cop told me the wife called and said I threatened her and was assaulting her husband on their front lawn. He asked me if I had any way to prove my side. Lucky for me, I have a dash cam in my car. I left the windows down and the cam caught some of the action from the front door on video. The audio caught the rest of him demanding a refund, threatening me telling him to back off, some audio of the struggle, him telling me he was going to kill me, and even me telling him to calm down. Apparently, a neighbor across the street had a Ring camera, and it also captured the incident with video and some audio. The cops then let me go. They got my info and told me that my story seemed straight. I pressed charges on him and was told by the cops they would call me if they had more questions. Edit. I did report them to the app and included a copy of the police case number from the county records. Should be sufficient to get them banned. Edit 2. If I wanted to write a fake story, wouldn't I put some spinning stuff or something out of a John Wick movie? Like, come on, if I wanted to go down that route, I might as well go 150 miles per hour down it. Also, to those who ask about injuries, nothing crazy. A bruise on my cheek, a bit of a busted lip, and he bit my finger pretty good. But outside of that, I'm pretty okay. Nothing I haven't had before. This original poster's second edit wouldn't make a lot of sense if you were to read this on Reddit, since there are actually relatively few comments accusing this story of being a fake. However, a quick look at an archival site shows that many of those comments have simply been removed for breaking sub-rules. A lot of subreddits don't look kindly on users playing truth police. Their main reasons for doubting the story are understandable. This reads a lot like other stories that have been posted in the past, and it does seem odd that DoorDash has so many amateur ninjas under their employ. Plus, the elaborate details are called into question by people who have been in fights before and find that their memories are usually hazy due to the high adrenaline of the situation. That said, this OP does describe the police encounter with more accuracy than most. In the definite fakes, the police hear OP's side of the story and immediately arrest the Karen without further investigation. In reality, you really would press charges and then simply wait for something to happen. So if it is fake, it was at least written by someone who's done their homework. With all of that said, the funniest detail is just the last few lines. This OP claims he didn't suffer any wounds he hasn't had before. But if you're getting habitually bitten on the finger, it may be time to question the life choices that led to such an insanely specific repeat occurrence. Then again, you may also want to question your life choices if you're attacking someone nearly half a foot shorter than you just because they delivered your foot 10 minutes later than you would have preferred. Unfortunately, I've seen just enough Karen videos to believe something like this could happen. I actually watch them a few hours a week, so maybe I'm not the one who should be telling people to question their life choices. If you made it this far in the video, consider liking and subscribing for more videos coming. Karen hits my coworker with her car and wants us to pay. I work at a small grocery retail chain on the East Coast and had this run-in with a customer that I just had to share. So an employee we will call Bob was going to lunch. Bob was walking out into the parking lot and did not look both ways before crossing the street. As a car was driving past, he stepped out into the road and walked face first into the rear driver door. Yes, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I even verified on camera. He's just not the brightest bulb. So Bob walks into this woman's car, and she immediately stops the car and gets out yelling. This is when I was walking by and went to check and see if everyone was okay. I walked by the angry lady, and I knelt down beside Bob to see if he was okay. Bob was laughing and shook his head, saying he was okay and wasn't sure what happened. Meanwhile, the lady was yelling behind me, "Aren't you going to ask how I'm doing? My car was hit." I involuntarily laughed because of the absurdity of her being upset that I checked on the person hit by the car and not on the car first. This made the lady even more mad as she stepped forward and yelled at me again. "I don't think this is very funny. My brand new car is damaged, and you are going to have to pay me for the damage." I finished helping up Bob, who said his ankle was twisted. Then I looked at the car, which was a late 2000s model car. I looked to see the damage and saw a small scratch that could have been from Bob. I responded with, "Well, we will get it taken care of, ma'am. I suggest you call the police to fill out an accident report." The angry lady quickly snapped back, "No, you need to pay me for my damages." I shook my head and laughed, this time on purpose, because I felt that at this point she was being beyond absurd. "Ma'am, I'm not going to be paying for anything, but if you'd like to call the police and fill out a report, They can handle everything. She pointed at me and said, "F you, Biscuit!" Then she got in her car and peeled out of the parking lot. I've been trying all day to figure out what happened and why she wouldn't call the police. Luckily, Bob just has a sprained ankle, but the store manager filled out a report and made me write a statement just in case. Did Karen think this OP was the manager? Why on earth would she think this random employee was responsible for paying, simply because they happened to be passing by at the time? I get that she probably meant to have the store pay, but it's just odd that she aimed so much of her complaint at OP and almost none of it at Bob. The comments turned into a heavy debate over whether Karen would be legally responsible. Many assume that this is why she wouldn't call the police. The logic is that she hit a pedestrian, and the driver is almost always held responsible in those cases. It varies a bit by where you live. For instance, I've lived in a state where you would be free of guilt if someone ran in front of your car, no matter how badly they were hurt. I imagine the same is true if they ran into your rear door. But other commenters say that where they live, the driver is at fault no matter what. In an area like a parking lot where you expect a lot of pedestrians, this is likely even more true. What do you think? Is Karen at fault for Bob running into her car? Should it matter? After all, she can't really prove the scratch came from Bob. Leave us a comment letting us know if you think this woman is really a Karen or if she's the victim for having her car hit. Even if you don't live on the East Coast, it'll be interesting to hear how different areas treat this issue. Karen demands I cut her hair when I'm not a stylist. Before lockdown, I went to the salon to get my hair done. After the cut, the stylist had to leave and go to the bathroom. While she was in there, I got up and was checking out my new hairdo in the mirror and thinking about what more I might ask for. I turned around and Karen was sitting in the chair. Before I could even say anything, she gave me her style request. I don't remember what it was, other than the fact it wasn't the stereotypical Karen cut. I said, "Sorry, I don't work here. I'm just waiting for the stylist to finish me up." Then the front desk employee came back and told Karen that not only did she need an appointment, but she also couldn't just walk in and sit down in one of the stations. Karen's response was to say that my station was open and the stylist, me, was just primping herself in the mirror, so I must be free to do her hair. The employee said, "She doesn't work here. You need to check in at the front desk." Karen said, "Pshaw, she's wearing the apron of the company. She works here and should be doing her job rather than prettying herself in the mirror." I was wearing an apron with the company name on it. It's the one all clients wear to protect their clothing. While Karen was arguing with the front desk employee, my stylist was done in the bathroom. She came out and began asking me, "Is it okay, or do you need changes?" Karen told her to shut up and wait her turn. I said everything was good and walked up to pay, with Karen yelling at me the whole time to come back and do her hair. She was still yelling as I paid and walked out, but not before I saw Karen sit down for a cut and have the apron put on her, to which I shouted out, "She's wearing the apron! She must be an employee!" I should have cut her hair. Arts and crafts were always my worst activity at summer camp. It might have looked interesting. The stylist told me next time that I went in that Karen told her she hopes her coworker, in other words me, was going to lose her job for her behavior. And no matter how many times the front desk worker told Karen I was just a customer, Karen didn't believe her. For all the sticklers like me out there who were bothered by this, the proper name for a barber's cape is apparently a chair cloth. But if you Google that, you'll just find a bunch of pictures of cloth chairs. It seems that barber cape is what the internet's going with nowadays, so the fact that OP keeps calling it an apron is really weird. Does this salon just let you get hair all over your neck and shoulders? Or was OP actually wearing a chair cloth and Karen bizarrely thought that was a normal thing for a stylist to wear? Both possibilities feel strange. The comments point out another scenario that feels far more likely. Karen probably realized she was wrong almost immediately and simply didn't want to admit it. I could actually see this being the case with a large number of the tamer Karen stories out there. However, that comment thread leads to another conclusion I'm less sure about, which is that people like this are incapable of change. That feels like a pretty extreme conclusion based on this one argument. It's certainly not the healthiest worldview, even if it does seem to be a common one these days. And it probably didn't help matters when the real stylist walked out and seemed completely unfazed by a random woman suddenly sitting in OP's seat. That said, this worldview also probably helps keep people safe from becoming doormats, so I see its appeal. What do you think? Is there hope for the Karens of the world, or is it a waste of brainpower to give the idea any thought? Let us know in the comments how you feel about the subject. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.